Good morning to everyone. I'm Suzanne Kavik, president of the League of Women Voters of Newcastle, and it's the League's pleasure to welcome you to this conversation with Police Chief Carroll. The League is a grassroots organization that promotes the active and informed participation of all citizens in government. Voter education has long been one of the League's most important functions. The information today will be presented by Town of Newcastle Police Chief James Carroll. You will have the opportunity to ask questions following his presentation via the chat. Please join me in welcoming Chief Carroll.
Morning.
Morning. So I'm Lee Barth. I'm first vice president of the League in Newcastle. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. We wanted to give new and longtime residents a chance to learn more about the police department and more about you as our chief. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your career, your time here in Newcastle, and your transition to being chief, which I think is about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, the 28th of June, so 2+.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for the invite. I really appreciate to be here. I was hired as a deputy sheriff in 1990 at Dutchess County. I came down to Newcastle in Halloween of 1993. I worked on the patrol division, and I was in patrol my whole career, actually. I was never in the detective division. In 2004, April Fool's 2004, interesting enough, I was promoted to sergeant. Then I was a sergeant for 12 years until February of 2016, where I was promoted to lieutenant. I did 3 years as the executive officer running the patrol division. And finally, I was promoted to chief June 28th, 2019. So I guess if you stay long enough, they keep promoting you. And finally, I made it to chief. So
yeah. And how big was that a big transition or?
Yeah, it was, in some ways, Chief Ferry, my predecessor, did a really, I think, good job with, a succession plan. He actually added a 3rd lieutenant. So we had 3 lieutenants, so they had 3 candidates to do it. And, and he had us all, working in all aspects of the department, from budget to, patrol functions, administration to scheduling. So I think he did a good job, putting me in position and the other lieutenant's position to succeed. It's definitely nice being the number 2 guy at times, because I have a joke with him that he called me up a month after I was promoted. He says, "How you doing?" I go, "Well, I don't sleep as much." And he goes, "Funny." He goes, "I sleep much better." So, so that was interesting.
Right.
The first 6 months of my tenure was pretty smooth and pretty nice. I got a full-time SRO in the school. We were all real happy. Got a traffic officer back. I put a steady village officer. I was feeling really good. And then in October, I had one of my officers unfortunately get arrested, which kind of was something I never had to deal with in my career. I've never seen that. So that was December. And then early in 2020, we had COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So, that dealing with that was, trying in many ways to, reinvent police work, and the way we do things. And then from there, we had George Floyd get murdered and all the problems that caused in society and for law enforcement and for everyone. So it's, first 6 months were good. Last year and a half have been really hard, but, we're getting through it, and, we got a balance, and, the rhetoric against law enforcement, I think, is starting to go away, and I think there's all the reforms and changes. So I think, going forward, we're in a good spot.
Great. So it was great to see so many officers and meet some new officers at Community Day, or at least new to me. So can you tell us a little bit about the people who make up the department, and, what, we have patrol officers and detectives. How many people are on patrol during the day, during the night? Because I know we've had, as budgets change, sometimes we have more officers out on duty. Some years we have fewer. So how we, especially for new residents, how is the department made up?
Right. So currently we have 38 officers. Myself, I have 2 lieutenants, 8 patrol sergeants, a detective sergeant, 2 detectives, a detective / youth officer, and then I have to come back to the number. I think at that point it's 22 police officers.
Mhm.
And patrol are assigned Monday through Friday, and they deal with, detectives are assigned Monday through Friday, and they deal with the criminal investigations or in our youth. And the additional patrol officers work, 24/7, 365. I should say of those 22, we also have a school resource officer assigned to Horace Greeley High School. And then I also have 3 full-time civilian employees, a part-time, an officer assistant, a community service worker, an animal warden. I have a part-time assistant, administrative assistant. I have 4 community service workers, including parking enforcement. We have 6 court officers and 2 school crossing guards. So, overall, our numbers are closer to 55.
Wow. So that sort of segues into when a resident has a concern about an enforcement of the law, say a noise complaint, what is your advice about how residents should approach that sort of problem, say with their neighbor, and how or when should they seek police assistance? So with those quality of life and or something more serious.
Yeah, the first step for me is always to try to talk to your neighbor if you can, if you have that kind of relationship. But sometimes people don't, and if you try talking to them, it goes nowhere and you're not getting any resolution, then you should call the police desk. If you're in a position where you're uncomfortable talking to them, because if you don't talk to them, go right to us, sometimes it escalates before it needs to. Sometimes it's just a conversation, will take care of things. But if that doesn't, isn't successful, or you're not comfortable doing it, call the police desk. So, I tell her our value to the community, is product, is service, right? So if you call the desk, I want you to see an officer. I want you to be explained why or why not, it is a police matter. And we also want to be able to direct you to the proper way to handling it. So something like a noise complaint, if you didn't have any luck, call the desk. If we would check and make sure it is, part of a violation of the noise ordinance, and you should see an officer.
Yeah. So that's how people should go about if they need assistance.
Yeah, never hesitate to call the desk. I realize I know people sometimes it can be intimidating for people, but they're there to help. They're there to serve you, to make your life easier and better. And that's what we're here. That's what we do. So please, I always tell people they're really, they wear a blue uniform, but they're mothers, their fathers, their sons, their husbands, their wives. They really are good people, and they want to help.
Okay, great. So one of our residents sent in a question and had a concern or had a question about how does the department train personnel to interact with residents or people with disabilities, and specifically, like, given the idea that there are reports that in the news that individuals, especially those on the autism spectrum, have miscommunications or difficult encounters with the police. And that's like in general.
Training in general, and training in crisis intervention, and we're dealing with people with disabilities, including autism. I don't know what disabilities, is a hot topic. It was a hot topic during the policing forum. But I would tell you this: basic recruit training it includes professional communication training, crisis intervention training. They do role playing, which is just and all kinds of different scenarios, which kind of teaches them, de-escalation skills, which I think is a part as well. In addition, the department has done periodic roll call training in dealing with, people with autism. We do it on a semi-annual basis, a video that's a refresher. We also have other officers that have actually attended a couple of full-time seminars and have passed on that knowledge during some of those role-playing scenarios to everyone. And I always tell people we also have like a a process we called Kind Find, and it's where parents of autistic children and young adults under 21 years of age that have autism can submit informational sheets and photographs of their children to the department. This information is then entered into our record management system. And if the name of the person with autism or their address, as soon as that comes into our computer system, it sends a flag up and reminds the officer who's responding that you might be dealing with somebody with autism.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so if somebody in the community wanted to register their child or forward that information to someone else, where can they find information about how to register for that service?
They certainly could stop by the police desk. You know what? I have to check it. I don't remember if it's on the website, but I can, if it isn't, I can certainly have it added. And, I could actually send out a Facebook post just to remind people that that is a service we provide.
Great.
And one of the recommendations during our police reform was additional crisis intervention training and dealing with people with disabilities for next year. So that's something we're working on scheduling as well.
Right. I know. I think that, does the county have, I know that there has been some discussion about the county providing a service that might deal with mental health calls rather than, or some sort of, I guess that's a related topic, which is going out on calls that perhaps are more mental health concerns than criminal behavior.
Right. It was certainly a hot topic during police reform. And I will add that I think most of the time law enforcement does get it right, but, we're not perfect and we are not, trained crisis intervention counselors.
Right.
As part of the recommendations of police reform to the county was to reinstitute what we had years ago as a crisis intervention teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had a meeting with the Chiefs Association, and they're going to have 8 separate teams based on a regional manner. So they're all over the county, they'll be stationed, and they will assist law enforcement in responding to calls with people in crisis, which is wonderful. A lot of times we're there first,
Right.
And we should be, because if somebody is in enough crisis that the police get called, normally it's a 911 call, then we should be able to do it. And most of the time we can keep it calm and then have the professionals help. And working with them is just going to be a wonderful thing. I will say this, that we did see the problem during COVID too, and we actually had the ability to call a crisis intervention trained person from the county and FaceTime them on some calls. It was a workaround before they got these teams in, and we used that on a couple of times.
Excellent. And I hate this is kind of moving through some difficult topics. What about domestic violence cases? And is there a particular approach that you guys take or training that you take for dealing with domestic situations? I know we're going through a whole bunch of, the tough stuff.
Yeah, we go to a lot of them. There are more than I would like to. And our process is to go through 2 officers go to every call. Fortunately, most of ours are of a verbal dispute than physical or destruction of property, while we do have them. The laws in New York are very restrictive. If a crime is committed, an arrest has to be made, whether somebody wants to or not. Crime being misdemeanor or felony, and there's a whole list of family offenses that actually require mandatory arrest. An arrest can be made on a violation, but we need the cooperation of the victim. But while we do, so it used to be separate, mediate. That was the whole procedure. Now it's separate, mediate, pro-arrest when necessary, and referral to the family court or other services that help. And we have a lot of experienced officers who have trained new ones. The role-playing scenarios, in the academy, and that we do throughout every year. Yearly, we actually go in front of a simulator and deal with domestics, and then it's observed by supervisors and firearms instructors who, and de-escalation officers who, critique and advise and see how we can handle it or what they're doing well and not well. So, but we handle more than I wish we had to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I noticed you on your, I think it was on your Facebook page that you guys are, that your department is part of a new initiative called Hope Not Handcuffs. And I don't want to, I guess about, can you explain sort of what that initiative does and that partnership, I guess it is, and what that means for people who are struggling with addiction?
Yeah, anyone at any time can show up at the police department, and we will take you in. We'll put you in a room, and with an officer, in a helpful manner, and we call Hope Not Handcuffs Angel. So an angel will respond, and they're volunteers, and they'll come directly to the police department and stay with you until they actually place you in a treatment facility. And you can show up and you can have drugs on you or be intoxicated, and you will not be arrested. The drugs will be taken and put into evidence, and you will receive the help. And they say they will, whether you can afford it or not afford it, they will have you in a facility within, 12 hours. That's the idea before.
Mm-hmm.
We put it on our Facebook page. We have pamphlets at Town Hall. It's posted on some of the screenings at Town Hall. And officers have cards in their possession and to hand out to people in town if they feel necessary. And it's a nice thing too, if you have, if you do come in contact with an officer does in the street, he does not have to arrest you. If you tell him that, after receiving the information that you are considering the program, and you have a week to decide and, try to join the program. If not, you probably would be subject to arrest after that. So, it's a nice diversion program. It's another way of helping the community, or people in need.
Great. Are there any other initiatives that you'd like residents to be aware of?
Not, it caught me off guard there, Leah.
Well, if you think of something, you can always, pop in and say it. I guess it kind of segues into sort of the big one, which was, and you mentioned it, the police reform and reinvention committee, and that work that you guys did in the wake of George Floyd's death. So, especially because we have a lot of new residents, if you can maybe sort of talk about what that process was and what the outcome of the whole process was.
Yeah, sure. The governor mandated that all police departments, to maintain funding in the future, go through what they call police reform and reinvention. And really, it was a chance to look at your department again, and do a self-evaluation based upon a book of guidelines as to what you should be looking about and talking about. And to do that, you had to have an open forum with the community to just try to get the opinions, what you are doing with the community or what the feelings were. And then you had to get a group of stakeholders together who would work through the police reform process. And we did. We had members of CRE, we had members of the town board, we had members from town government, we had the school district, we had mental health members, we had students and college students. We had a whole, and we also had officers. And we had, I think, 15 sessions after the initial forum, and hours and hours and hours. And it was really enlightening because, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different people, and working our way to a solution or some things that we could do better. Fortunately, I think, and I think it proved through our efforts that we're doing a lot well. We're doing a lot of things that they wanted other communities to do. Community policing is our foundation. It is what we do. We are out there and we are involved in the community. Diversity was important. They wanted diversity in law enforcement, and we are probably the most diverse law enforcement agency in Northern Westchester. We can't match some of the cities, but we are by far. We are, 68% white, 18% Black, 11% Hispanic, and we have 11% of females, which is unheard of for a community like ours. And we did that by always hiring the best candidate, regardless of race, color, sexual orientation, and it's worked out very, very well for us. Another thing we do is we are an accredited agency. So an accredited agency just provides. There's only 20% of all New York police departments are accredited, and there's 540 police departments. So something we're very proud of, and it enables us to strengthen existing procedures while simultaneously creating a solid foundation. The benefits include independent confirmation that policies comply with professional standards. We get a review initially 1 year and then every 5 years. It ensures fair recruitment, selection, promotion. There's 125 standards that we're required to abide by to be accredited, and it makes it more professional and more accountable. But what I also thought was great about what I found during the stakeholder meetings was we were doing a lot of what they want us to do. It's just people didn't know it. Mm-hmm. And once we explained in those stakeholder meetings, they were like, "Oh, great! Yeah, you are doing that. You are doing that." So those were all good things. But like everything, you can always improve. So we did have some changes that came out of it that was recommended by the stakeholders, and some of it was mental health. They gave some suggestions as to how we could handle mental health calls differently, and how maybe we could do a debriefing policy. So some of the mental health experts, we talked about that, and then we changed some policy based upon their recommendations. Another one was, of course, the crisis intervention from the county teams, and that's actually happened. Another recommendation again was, additional mental health and training on dealing with development delays, people with developmental delays for next year. Mm-hmm. So that was good. There was a feeling out there that some people of color are afraid to call the police to make a complaint, and we don't have very many big complaints a year, but we do have some less minor ones. But we didn't want that to be a problem, that people were afraid and were afraid of the police. So we have created the Office of Community Advocate, which is kind of an independent person that anyone, person of color or not, can reach out to and make a complaint through them. They're not lawyers, they're not like that, but they're just going to be an advocate for them. Because anonymous complaints are very difficult because there's no opportunity for feedback, there's no opportunity for follow-up. So the community advocate is a way to deal with those problems. We also created what's called the Chief's Advisory Board. Again, it's made up from people from the community. I have a business owner. I have somebody from I'm Martha Stewart, Martha Jacobs on it. And I have Christine Ackerman, and I have a member of the CRE and a couple of students. And they're kind of like, their job is to just tell us what's going on in the community. They try to keep up with trends in law enforcement and training, and make recommendations to us as to what they think we could be doing and doing better. So that was a nice thing. It was a suggestion for a community survey, and we did the community survey during the police reform. But we also want to do that maybe periodically to see what we're doing and if we can do anything else. I'm also supposed to have semi-annual meetings, which I do with the town board, just to talk about department updates and what's going on. One of the suggestions was that we start tracking traffic stop demographics. So right after that, we started doing that. And actually that information is going to go to the Chief's Advisory Board, who's going to review it. And there's a couple of different models out there how to review it and how to make suggestions based upon that. And the last one was posting our key policies on our website. And we have our use of force policy and our deadly physical force policy on our website. We also have a list of every policy we have and information how to foil that. So anybody who wants a copy of any one of our policies can get it that way. Mm-hmm. It was exhausting and time consuming, but in the end, I think it makes us better.
Great. So I think so it sounds like there were the recommendations. They went up to they got filed somewhere in the state, but the suggestions were actually have been implemented and you're working through those things. So that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, the actual county is actually holding a forum later on this month with all the supervisors to find out where they are in their process. So we are in good shape there.
Excellent. Is there anything else? So we do have a lot of new residents. I'm sure you met a lot of them, especially the young ones at Community Day. But what would you want new residents to know about living in Newcastle? What's some advice you'd give a new resident?
Okay, lock your cars at night and take your valuables. So that's actually, I don't know if you've seen, I've sent a bunch of posts on it. That's been a hot issue in Westchester for probably the last year. Where, there's a couple of groups out of Connecticut and Jersey that are coming to towns in Westchester, and they're hitting neighborhoods, and they get out in the middle of the night and they start rummaging through cars and they take stuff, and there are keys there. They'll actually, take the car, and they'll take the car and they'll use it for a few weeks or a week, and then they'll switch it and go to another community and take them. Problem we're finding it with them is within some of the actual police reform from the legislation is that they're getting released right away on an appearance ticket. And some of them, because the age things, they can't even be charged. So they're getting arrested, they're getting charged, and they're getting released, and they're coming back. So, but we know who they are. We have made a few arrests in town on them, but I would say that. But overall, back to what you're saying. Great. It's a wonderful community. It's family oriented. It's a lot of hardworking, great people. You have a police department that I think cares and wants to be involved and approachable. And if you see an officer, go up and say hello. Don't feel, engage. What I love about Community Day and love about the interaction with the kids is that, they see us there, and it's a foundation for the rest of their life, right? We're approachable there. You're on the car, and you're on the motorcycle, and you're getting stuff, and you're talking, and it just makes you more comfortable. And I think that's a really good thing.
Great. So, and how should new residents make sure that they're getting the information that you're putting out and communications? What's the best way? Nixle and email?
Yeah, definitely. The Nixle is the best. It's Everbridge. You can go onto our website, and there's a link to sign up for Nixle. What happened was Nixle changed the way they were doing things. At one point, every time I sent out a Nixle, it went to both email and your cell. And then it was too expensive for Everbridge, so they actually started defaulting to anybody who had an email address. So a lot of stuff you weren't getting on the cell would go to your email. It might not be timely. And I didn't realize that until after the last storm, that it really wasn't going to everybody. So we're actually telling everybody now to get the Everbridge app. If you get the Everbridge app and I put our zip code in it, you'll get everything right to your phone right away. So it's a better way you can do it. And check our Facebook page out. And a lot of times the town board in their newsletter will give some blurbs about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We did have one other question, which was about leaf blower enforcement. So can you explain, we have a new leaf blower law that prohibits the use of gas leaf blowers. Is it June 1st to September 1st or?
September 30th. Yeah, I have to look it up. Yes, there is that. So
so how is that enforced? What is your role in that? And what advice can you give residents?
So anytime there's been a new enforcement, we always try to handle it the same way. I'll give you the example of the mass law. The mass law and leaf blower law, what we want is to get the information out there. We want education, right? Education first. Then we want voluntary compliance. And then after voluntary compliance, if that doesn't happen, then we want enforcement. So with the leaf blower, I know the town put out information. I put it out in a Nixle and followed up with a Facebook post. And then when we interact with someone in the community who complains about the violation, we will educate whoever it is the first time, and we will document their name and their information. Mm-hmm. Any subsequent interaction with them would be issued a summons. So if you see a leaf blower violation, call the desk. We will certainly send an officer out. We will see if we've dealt with them before. And if we have, we will issue a summons. If not, we'll educate them and provide them information about the law. We have had quite a few, calls on it. We've issued a few summonses, and sometimes we've also, not only did we give the information to the worker, but we actually called the company on top. And sometimes the complaint was like, hey, this company's out there doing it. So we can actually call the management and the owners for them and advise them of the violation.
Right. So there is a mechanism if somebody sees, if somebody sees a company truck, you can call in a complaint about the company, not necessarily about the individual worker.
We've done that. I'd say anywhere from, a half dozen to a dozen times.
Right. And what about the homeowners? Because in most cases, they're not the ones holding the leaf blower, I presume.
Right. The person operating the actual leaf blower is the person in violation of the leaf blower law. So they would be the one to issue the summons.
Right.
So the company doesn't get it. Unfortunately, it's the worker that gets it, but hopefully that goes back to the company, and to the management. But if a resident is using it, again, we treat them the same. We, educate, warning, follow up would require the summons. And we do that for noise ordinances too. By mowing my lawn or chainsaw after, so many hours.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to have to write summonses if we don't have to. We'd rather, handle it, with discretion and cooperation.
Right. And have those complaints gone down over the course of the last few months, or is that?
Yes, definitely. I have to look it up to see, but it certainly was more in the beginning, and people weren't happy with it, and then as education's got out there, it's gone down. I don't know if you knew this, but the town actually waived it for a week after the last storm. It wasn't fair that we were out there cleaning up the village with them, and then we thought it was a chance for everybody to clean up. So it's room to, there's room in there.
Right. And right. So this is you're enforcing, the town is the one that has the discretion to change the enforcement when that's something you can't do on your own. That's something the town board lifts when they're
it's actually the commissioner's DPW's ultimate decision, but it was with discussion with myself and the head of recreation. So.
Okay, great.
And and I always tell everybody, we don't make the laws. We just get the wonderful job of enforcing them.
Right. Yes. So, okay, great. And anything else that you guys are doing or want people to know? I guess follow you on Facebook, sign up for Nixle.
And say hello. Get out. They're not. I know. It's intimidating with the car and the uniform and the gun, but like I said before, they're really good people. I think we always tried to hire good people. We can make good cops or great cops. You can't make good people, and that's kind of
question. I did have one question as my daughter, my last child is now out of the house at college, but advice for parents of teens on how they should interact with the police if they're pulled over, if they're in an area of town where they shouldn't be, say on the town basketball court at midnight. What's your advice to parents for what they should tell their kids about how to interact with the police?
Just be polite and respectful, and you'll get that back. And I think, you'll just be issued a warning and some education as to what you're doing right or wrong. And you'll be sent on your way. Yeah. I think, again, treat people how you want to be treated. I know it's maybe intimidating, but don't be defensive. Just, yes, officer. Oh, what was I doing wrong? Oh, okay. Well, why? If they can ask why, it's not a problem. The officer will explain why you're not supposed to be doing where you are or why you're not supposed to be there. So that's my suggestion. And The kids are good. They know. Stay away from Rockies at night. It's
Yeah, yeah,
it's a busy place with a lot of people from out of town, and we've had more problems there in the past 6 months than I'd like to recall.
oh, interesting. Yeah, well, it's open 24 hours, so.
Right. I prefer nothing open 24 hours in town, but it's not my call.
Right. Okay. And what about, has marijuana legalization changed anything for you? Do you anticipate changes?
It certainly changed things for us. Yeah, in some ways it was some officers use it for probable cause to maybe find a different crime or a bigger crime, and that's really not something they can do anymore. We didn't have much of them, minor violations. There wasn't that much of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing in our concern is the impaired driving and the recognition of impaired driving with the impaired with marijuana. So, it's only active at a certain time, and the testing for it is not where it should be yet. So everybody's kind of like walking their way through that. So, you can show signs of impairment, and, in the marijuana can be active at that time, but, in a short time later, you might not be. So they're trying to come up with testing that makes it more accurate. So don't get high and drive, right? Or don't smoke and drive. And you can't smoke in the car. And that I think everybody does know that. So that's still not no.
Yeah, well, I hope teens know that, but that's an education piece that we'll have to work on. So, thank you so much for taking the time to give us more information about the police department and you and what we can expect, and a lot of great initiatives that are moving things forward, making us making residents safer and with more sensitivity. So thank you so much for your time. We will put out, I guess, if you want to, we I think have a couple of little questions to send back to you, maybe about how to do the registries for autistic children and things, but thank you so much.
I want to thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope I answered everything you were looking for. I will say this, anybody at any time can email me. It's jcarroll@mynewcastle.org. And I will get back to you. I pride myself on being a member of this community and being there for the community. So if I can't get the answer to you, one of my lieutenants was. But don't hesitate. And if you have any suggestions or ideas, I'm always willing to listen.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And I think our next scheduled league event is invitations have gone out for candidates forum for county legislator and town board positions. And we are hoping it will be October 21st. That will be by Zoom. I think it starts at 7. And also look for, we will be doing a budget forum in November. So follow us on Facebook, or you can always go to our website, LWV of Newcastle.com. Actually, I'm not even sure exactly of it, but you can search for us, League of Women Voters of Newcastle, our Facebook page, our website, and thanks to everyone who listened in, and I hope everyone finds it helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.